Howdy there, folks. I'm reporting to you live from the bottom of the barrel. I thought that finding 3 anime games would be a piece of cake, but y'all, too many of these things are arena fighters. I love fighting games, but do you know how much content there is to talk about in your average anime arena fighter? Not a lot. How much do you think I have to say on My Hero Macadamia? Not a lot! So my options were slashed by about 80% once you take out those and the 50-hour-long RPGs, so I was picking at scraps. Maybe Cowboy Bebop? Nope, only in Japanese. Lupin the Third? Plays like a Metal Gear game that was dropped as a baby. Full Metal Alchemist? I don't have an excuse, I just didn't play this one. Neopet's Puzzle Adventure? Wait, that's not even anime, what was I thinking? I was panicking to find anything that could come close to counting. You were inches away from getting a Bakugan video, but I did it. I found a game you've never heard of, based on a manga you've never heard of, that just so happens to be one of the most fun action games I've ever played. Blood Will Tell is a 2004 PS2 game published by Sega and developed by friends of the channel, Red Entertainment, the same people behind Gungrave. Now, it may be hard. Oh, I could have just done Gungrave. Now, it may be a bit hard to tell in this car crash of a title, but this is based on the manga Dororo by Osamu Tezuka. Alright, but who's Osamu Tezuka? Well, let's introduce him with his nicknames first, like the father of manga and god of manga. Right next to Scrooge McDuck, nobody is more responsible for the popularity of manga today than Osamu Tezuka. He's the guy responsible for Astro Boy, New Treasure Planet, Kimba the White Lion, Blackjack, all of which set the stage for manga and anime as we know it today. There is no other description that does him the justice he deserves than to call him Japan's Walt Disney, a creative juggernaut that set the stage for an entire medium to bloom in his country. Ironic considering Tezuka himself was a massive Disney fan. But even Walt Disney had his experimental flop films that didn't exactly find an audience, and for Tezuka, that was Dororo. When you go through the list of Tezuka's most noteworthy works, Dororo is often left off the list, and part of that is because it was a massive departure from his usual style. Tezuka wasn't afraid to change the direction of his works, making manga for kids like Astro Boy, Kimba, and Princess Knight, but also manga for older audiences like Buddha, Phoenix, and Adolf. Dororo was his first attempt at making a more adult manga, swapping out the Disney-inspired slapstick for a more grounded story. Though it's not hard to tell this was his first pass at making a more mature story, Dororo isn't much of a hard switch, but rather a gradient towards a more adult story. You have this big, mean Bluto guy who looks straight out of his earlier works like Astro Boy, and then 3 pages later, the art style really betrays the sort of story it's trying to tell. Not that it's bad art, not by a long shot, but it's not the right art for this kind of book. Luckily, Tezuka was able to course correct later on in Blackjack, making a style that fit the tone of a more adult manga far better than Dororo did. That leaves Dororo as the awkward first pancake, not quite hitting the mark, but leading the way for much bigger and better things. But does that mean that it would be confined to the dustbin of history? A little bit. It has its fans. Altered Beast on PS2 has its fans, and those fans would get a new piece of Dororo content every couple of years. You'd have the PS2 game in 2004, the live-action movie in 2007 with a bustling Wikipedia page, the new manga in 2018, and the new anime in 2019. I actually did watch the whole of this new anime in preparation for this video. Yeah, it's really good. But the PS2 game is what we're focusing on, and why was a Dororo game made in the year 2004 after the last new piece of Dororo content was made in 1969? Well, why do we elect a new favorite Ben & Jerry's flavor every year? Because if we don't, society will fall apart! But now really, try to think why a hack-and-slash game about a guy with swords and a gun killing demons would have been made in the year 2004. I just have no idea what sort of devil pulled the trigger on this idea. Yes, Devil May Cry made it cool to make a 3D beat-em-up that didn't suck eggs, and everybody was eager to hop on the bandwagon. Dororo just happened to be the perfect property to do this sort of game with. Now, why was it called Blood Will Tell in America? I don't know, it won't tell me. A game like this getting made is already pretty head-scratching, but a game like this getting localized is downright bizarre. Of all the games to come to America, one so heavily Japanese-themed, based on a manga that the game only tells you it's based on out of what feels like obligation, was the one they chose to release stateside. The game would end up reviewing just alright. It wasn't a huge hit financially or critically, sitting at around a 7 out of 10. But the eagle-eyed among us know better. Hearing an obscure PS2 action game as a 7 out of 10 means you're about to play an absolute masterpiece that also has some really annoying parts. Let's see where this game puts its sunshine moment. I hope it's not the final boss again. It's hard to understand exactly what this game is like without first knowing what Dororo is about. Now, in keeping with this game's theme of this title being an absolute catastrophe, Dororo is not who you play as. That title goes to Hyakkimaru, whose name is pronounced differently by everybody who meets him. You might get a Hyakkimaru, even the rare Hyakkimaru. Ooh, branching out. Hyakkimaru is the son of Kagemitsu Daigo, who after losing faith in the Buddha to bring an end to the chaos in his lands, makes a deal with 48 fiends for unlimited power. The price? Each of the demons would get a body part from Daigo's firstborn son. Daigo accepted the offer and with the power of the fiends became the ruler of the land, though that price would come back to bite him when his son was born. The fiends made good on their promise and each stole a part of Hyakkimaru's body, leaving him little more than a fleshless little caterpillar without eyes, ears, a nose, or most of his organs. Hyakkimaru would end up being found by Jukai, a doctor who used all of his knowledge of prosthetics to build Hyakkimaru a new body, one made entirely of porcelain and wood like a doll. His eyes, ears, and nose don't actually function, but it makes talking to people a lot easier when they're not staring at your face holes. The older and older Hyakkimaru gets, the more and more demons are drawn to him, and he eventually makes the decision to hunt down the fiends to kill them. If he kills a fiend, he gets the body part they took back, and inches closer and closer to becoming a real person. The game starts, and it immediately has to warn you that it's taking this stuff seriously. The prologue plays out entirely in black and white, since Hyakkimaru doesn't have his eyes and is using his sixth sense to see. There's a quick tutorial to get you started, but the game throws you right into the deep end with your first fiend fight. The game is your standard light and heavy shebang, but Dororo does manage to put a few unique twists on it. For those that got the feeling that Hyakkimaru would suck in a thumb wrestling match, your hunch was correct. Hyakkimaru had his arms and legs stolen by the fiends, so Dr. Jukai outfitted him with some weapons to make up for it. At the tap of a button, you can switch between Hyakkimaru's sword stance, which has more power and a refined style, to blender mode, where you jump around like a maniac, slicing any demon sorry enough to get in your way. The two forms also have their own benefits. For the sword stance, as you go through the game, you can find swords in the world with different properties, like elemental bonuses and stat buffs. The bonus is only applied to you while you're in that stance, though, so you're locked out of what maniac mode can do. On top of flashier combos, you can hold down R1 to fire a machine gun that was built into your arm. Well, we haven't invented toilet paper yet, but we do have this heavy machine gun. It chews through enemies like they're nothing, but the ammo for it can be pretty limited. Some things, though, are shared between both modes, like the finisher system and the cannon. See, I said that Hyakkimaru is also missing his legs, but there's no need to let the real estate go to waste. Hyakkimaru can take a knee and unlatch a cannon in his leg to fire at enemies. The results are devastating, but the ammo is even more limited than the machine gun ammo. The finisher system, though, is how you get more. By charging a heavy attack, you can try your hand at getting some rewards. Just hit the buttons as they appear. The longer you keep the combo up, the more rewards you get, and the stronger the enemy, the better the rewards. This is the only part of the game with a combo system, though, and it's not the only major thing this game is missing. There's no lock-on to stay focused on individual enemies, and when I figured that out, there was a brief panic spell. However, the more and more I played, the less and less I thought the game really needed one. Enemies come in such large swarms that there really isn't a need to focus on just one. You're gonna be taking out loads over the course of a single combo, so snapping back and forth between enemies wouldn't have felt great. It all comes together to make a combat system that doesn't show its age. Even without some of the modern conveniences we're used to, the game still manages to keep combat fast, entertaining, and fun. Okay, I think I've lulled him into a vulnerable state with that explanation. Let's kill him! Our first fiend fight is against Great Horn, and thankfully the game relents during boss fights and locks the camera onto the boss, though you can turn it off if you want to grab stuff around the arena. Great Horn is a decent introduction to how bosses work in this game. His attacks are slow to give you time to dodge, but they can deal plenty of damage if you stand around like a moron. Like all the other bosses in the game, he adds more moves the more health he loses and has a weak spot. For Great Horn, it's his Great Horn, but every boss has a weak spot that when struck deals loads more damage and staggers them. You can also finish off the fight using a special attack. These charge with every hit you land, and triggering one can deal loads of damage. But to make all things fair for the demons, they're also really easy to trigger by accident when you're just walking around, and they can either clear out a room of demons, or give them plenty to laugh at. Killing Great Horn gives Hyakkimaru back his first body part, upgrading his inner monologue to an outer one with vocal cords. It doesn't just give Hyakki back his voice though, it also increases your stats. That counter also spoils that yes, this game has 48 boss fights for you to get back your body parts, and every time you do, you get a boost. This system is absolutely genius. Each and every boss fight feels important thanks to every single one having a tangible effect. With every fiend you slay, you get stronger until eventually you can max out every stat. Speaking of voices though, against all odds, the game actually was completely localized and voiced over into English, and the quality is enjoyably bad. It's something you can appreciate as a product of the time without ruining everything. The voice cast includes Brett Walter, Kevin Miller, and Chris Murphy, who are trying to do the best with what they have. Kevin Miller and Chris Murphy are also reuniting because, if you can believe it, that's Sly and Murray from Sly Cooper.
While you're just a frustrated firework artist turned homicidal pyromaniac.
That does it! I'll floss my teeth with your spine!
Hyakki goes off to try to find more demons to slay when a group of them start attacking some people on a bridge, and among them is a young thief girl named Dororo. Oh, that's where it comes from! And we're not getting any further unless we kill them all. Once we finish them off, Dororo insists on following us so she can steal our sword arms. Do I look like I have arms to spare? All these conversations with Dororo take a turn for the hilarious when you realize that Hyakki can't hear anything she's saying until 3 chapters in when he gets his ears back. Up until then, he's just kinda reading her lips to try to figure out what she's saying. She doesn't spend much time not being abducted though, as a homunculus fiend swipes her. It spends the fight spitting smoke rings and putting that big ol' melon to good use to smash you across the stage. He's a bit harder than Great Horn since he fights back, but still nothing to sweat. Beating him pops out Hyakki's glass eye and replaces it with a real one, which on top of boosting his stats, returns color to the world. With color back in our world, it's time to start up the first proper chapter, and to celebrate the change, here comes Bellboy. I love Japanese yokai so much. What the hell is this thing? Hyakki sends him on his way, and on the next day, we go our own way to check out a nearby village. With Dororo by our side, we get the option to give her commands to do things like investigate the area for secrets, fight on her own, or pick up items. I tell you what, this game sets it up perfectly for Dororo to be the most annoying, unfun ball and chain that you'll end up hating by the end of the game. And what a letdown, she's actually great! All the worries you would have about a character following you for the entire game are completely assuaged early on. Dororo is completely capable of working on her own, never needing you to come save her. She's perfectly capable against grunt demons, helps out in boss fights, collects items for you. She's even a better demon fighter than Hyakki sometimes. That health bar probably gave you a fright when you first saw it, since it means that Dororo can die. Well, she'll get knocked down for a bit, but once she recovers, she hops right back up and is ready to fight again. I can't believe I didn't want her dead by the end of the game. Dororo may be one of the best partner characters I've ever seen. She does say Dororo punch a lot, I will not deny that. On our way to the village, we fight past all sorts of yokai, like kappas and the ones I need to check the names of. You got Kusarigato from Sam Show 5 and a big old pile of shit. Once we get to the village, we find it's not in much better shape than the land around it. Not only do demons walk around, doing their shopping, but the people might be even creepier. After hearing Hyakki and Dororo talk about the troll they saw earlier, they capture us and bring us to this big, scary, not a demon lady, Yudai. She wants to know what the troll said to us, but Hyakki isn't gonna sell out our new best friend so quickly, so we're sent to the well room to be eaten by a demon. You know, like a hero would do. Oh, hey, Hyakki, any reason you didn't do that earlier? Scourge is the next fiend and the first one that's gonna give you major trouble. It's a lot bigger than the last two and hits even harder. It's smartest to keep your distance and nail it with cannon fire from afar. Thankfully, the arena has plenty of cannon ammo to keep you going until Scourge flees. Hyakki tries to go after it into the well, but Dororo insists on going instead, hopping down and crawling into our first Dororo section. Yes, about once every chapter we'll get the chance to play as Dororo in platforming challenges. At first it seems like they would de-emphasize combat since Dororo is like 8, but no, you can drop-kick demons in the back of the head for just as much damage as Hyakki can. When are we gonna drop that dead weight and go out on our own? I can't carry Hyakki forever! Dororo makes her way through the catacombs all the way to Yudai's bedroom, where before we get a chance to look for any clues, we get captured and taken away. Hyakki decides that sitting on his thumb probably won't hurt as much when we get our real arms back, and goes off to find that bamboo thicket the troll was talking about. Good thing the dungeon has a clearly marked exit. Making it into the bamboo forest, and the game gives you a clear path forward to where the troll wants you to go. But who'd it ever hurt to go off the beaten path? The Oregon Trail was like 30 years ago or something, I'm sure I'll be fine. Once we get to the thicket we were told about, we hear Dororo cry out for us, which means we gotta book it back to the village. The villagers are trying to hang her for breaking out of the dungeon, and we've gotta stop it. I mean, I still have time to deal with a few worthless grunts. I'm sure she's got big lungs. Once we finally make it and cut her down, we lead the villagers to the bamboo thicket and show off that all the money they've had stolen has been buried here in a random hole in the ground. Turns out the demon that steals their money is the same demon that tried to eat us in the dungeon. Before we go after Scourge again, though, it's time for Fiend Battle number 4, Hell Crusher. Ah, he never hit me once. Killing him gives Hyakki back his esophagus, which isn't attached to anything. Horrible thought, ain't it? Turns out that troll wasn't so bad after all, and was just trying to get the people their money back. We also find out that Yudai has been looking over this village for almost 100 years. Very demon-like if you ask me, but the people of the village aren't convinced, so Dororo sneaks back into Yudai's castle to look for proof. Getting back into the castle, and you learn a little hint that's gonna help you loads with the game's future challenges. Sometimes you just gotta think, what's the dumbest thing the game could ask me to do, and then do it. Well, what else was I supposed to do but throw smoke grenades at this wall to knock out a guard? These moments come up a lot more in the Dororo sections. The run through the castle is capped off by finding a magic-looking arrow and a bit of the demon from the well in Yudai's bed. Just as Dororo finds that, something runs out into the forest, which Hyakki goes to investigate on his own. It's Scourge again, and the game shows off another great habit it has. Despite this being the second fight with Scourge, it's radically different. Even though it has the same attacks like the body slam and tail whip, the new main attack is using psychic powers to launch bamboo stalks at you. The amount of times this game reuses boss fights is shockingly low, never throwing just a palette swap at you and taking the care to switch up the attack so you don't feel like you're spinning your wheels. Except for the ones that are just a wheel spinning, those ones are the same. As for the Scourge fight though, it can be a real pain, especially since you won't have full health going into this fight and those bamboo stalks can home in on you. It's also here that we get to see that Yudai and Scourge are one and the same. What an embarrassing place to be on a demon. Since Yudai escaped, we don't get a body part back, but we'll get the chance since she's running back to the village. After getting to her bedroom, she reveals her true form as an ogre and challenges us to one final fight in the village. This is your first major roadblock in terms of difficulty, since she's about the same size as you, which means she's a lot harder to hit when you factor in her flight. As the fight goes on, she spends more time out of reach and trying to blast you with these big lasers. If you have half a brain, you can probably snipe her with your cannon, but I don't even think I have a skull yet. Dororo stabs Yudai with the arrow she found, which takes her down to her last phase, which gave me a heck of a lot of trouble. These beam attacks are really hard to avoid, and this was before I knew Dororo could revive if she dies, so I was busy trying to protect her too. Dying in this phase also sends you all the way back outside the castle. Man, that stinks. Anyway, what, you thought I bought this game physically? Hey, it's good! It ain't $215 for a loose copy good. This heartless bastard is charging $225 for the manual. I'll take my save states and sit at my own lunch table if it upsets you that much. Eventually, my instinct to try to jump over the lasers was dulled by the harsh, cold reality that running away would do much better. But what if the demons make fun of me? Killing Yudai gets Hyakki back his left leg, which thankfully isn't the one with a cannon in it, but it does give us the ability to dash. Yeah, this whole time we've been walking at a very brisk pace, face. The villagers see his leg pop off and a new one grow in its place and assume this has to be some demon nonsense and ask us to leave. Hyakki tells them it was their own unwillingness to save themselves that let Yudai control them for so long. Hey, I might not have any lymph nodes, but you guys suck! Once we leave, it's the end of Chapter 1, and we can move on to the next How many? Yes, killing those 5 demons was just the start of the journey. Clearing out a chapter gives you the option to run back through and scour the level for additional fiends. So we're right back into it, on the lookout for more demons. The first one puts that classic try the dumbest thing possible approach to use, having you cut the roots of this tree to use it as a bridge across a waterfall. What are the benefits to looking like this? Killing him gives us back the hippocampus, which is just floating around in the soup that is my head. That gives us the ability to look at our battle records and see how many demons we've killed. The next demon is back in the village, and you have to destroy all the tombstones in the graveyard to fight this weird alien stone statue man. He may have mastered levitation, but he sure is stumped by running around in a circle. Killing him gives us back our platelets, which is a weird part of the body to want, but it does increase our max HP since now we bleed slower. I don't even think I got blood yet. The final demon we can face for now is next to the castle, and destroying this glowing lantern pits you against a 3-faced demon. The faces shift between annoying, annoying as hell, and annoying as fucking hell. The blue and yellow faces have the demon constantly running around and dropping bombs at enemies. Hyakki doesn't really do well with enemies that aren't standing still for him to wail on. What about that last face, though? Oh, it ain't much better. Is the body part we get back worth it? All right, let me hear ya. We got any trapezius muscle fans in the crowd tonight? Now, I said there were 4 demons before, but that was only 3. Where's the last one? What if I just don't tell you? Huh? What if I just don't tell you where it is, and I beat it, and I don't show it to you? What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it, Pipsqueak, huh? Come on, what are you gonna do about it? Chapter 2 picks up with Hyakki and Dororo strolling through a suspiciously tutorial-shaped town and find that everybody inside has been slaughtered with a sword. Listen, as the man with swords for arms, I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I didn't do it. Running through the town, you also get to see this level's burden, these wheel demons. They're on fire, and even though I haven't gotten the ability to feel back yet, it still hurts to touch them anywhere other than the side where their heads are. Except me and the game can't exactly agree on what counts as the side and what counts as bullshit. Moving forward, we set out for the desert where there are even more corpses. Not of warriors though, but of innocent villagers. These people weren't just murdered, they were killed too! Just a bit down the road, we find our first suspect, clutching a sword like a dying fawn and talking about craving blood. He's innocent until proven guilty. The sword called Dragon Brood is possessed by a fiend and is controlling our gaunt friend, so Hyakki decides to flip his sword and beat him with the blunt end. In these non-lethal battles, Hyakki gets a bonus from back attacks, so we're noble enough to not want to kill another human being, but cowardly enough to only want to attack him from the back. This attack the back method actually works across most enemies in the game, human and demon alike, although the weirder the enemies get, the harder it is to tell exactly what their back is. No, point to the back on the umbrella. The samurai runs off, and while Hyakki catches his breath, Dororo gives chase to try to steal the sword for herself. Now, you'd think all you have to do is trail him and swipe it when he's not looking, but the game takes a bit more of a forward approach. Dropkick him in the back of the head until he drops unconscious and swipe the sword that way. This piece of crap got beaten into unconsciousness by like an 8-year-old. The sword's influence is too great though and manages to take over Dororo, leaving Hyakki to try to track her down. Does it count as a kidnapping if you're the one that kidnaps you? Getting to the village's shrine, we find a possessed Dororo hunched over and swinging the sword around like crazy. This starts another non-lethal fight, and it's a real tough one. Since the way to the boss is littered with enemies, you're unlikely to come in with full health, and Dororo is a real speedster. Sure, you can shred her health with back attacks, but getting close enough while she's swinging the sword isn't easy. Luckily, she does take the time to stand perfectly still and fire a massive, easily dodgeable attack. After knocking the sword out of her hand, the last samurai to have it snatches it back before we can break it and runs off. On our way to go find it, we get caught up by this massive flaming wheel demon who stops us from going any further. This boss is the only time the game uses the trope of take a regular enemy and make him bigger for its boss design, and to a nicer enemy it couldn't have happened. Killing him gives Hyakki back his kidneys, which means now he can get kidney stones. Rotten demon. We catch up to the samurai with Dragon Brood only to see that he's the Shrine Keeper Misaki's long-lost brother. The samurai, Tanosuke, tries to kill his own sister before Hyakki interrupts and he flees into the desert. After an embarrassing amount of time where I didn't realize I made a wrong turn, we track down Tanosuke to the desert plains for a final duel. Like it or not, he's gotta die or else Dragon Brood will keep controlling him. The fight starts with a repeat of the first encounter, except once that first health bar starts to go, he scampers off to a tar pit where you move super slow and can't jump high. He also throws in bigger attacks, like surrounding himself in swords and wider swings to cover more ground. The final phase has him completely lose it though, as now he's teleporting all over the place, only being open to attack for a few moments at a time while staying out of harm's way. This fight though is the best so far. Tanosuke's unpredictable attack patterns make him feel way more dangerous than any of the other demons you fought so far, and while the teleport can easily overstay its welcome, it's nothing you can't adjust to with ease. I also like how each time he transitions to a new phase of the fight, he's more and more visibly beaten until eventually he's barely standing up straight. After Hyakki finishes him off, Tanosuke decides to satisfy Dragon Brood's bloodlust with his own blood. Oh, hey Hyakki, might have been worth trying that out while he was still alive. Killing off Dragon Brood gives Hyakki back his spine and sends Misaki into a depression, blaming Hyakki for killing her brother. I don't think she was paying attention. With our work here done, you know, killing one guy, it's time for Hyakki and Dororo to hit the trail. Back to the start of the level. For the next round of Demon Roundup, we've got to go back to fight the Impaler and Dream Eater. Impaler is a unique boss with plenty of neat attacks, while Dream Eater is just a rerun of the Homunculus fight. Killing them gives us back our Cerebellum, which improves balance, and our third chakra point. Oh god, they're stealing concepts from my body! On to Chapter 3, and our quick trip up the mountain gets interrupted by Daigo, Hyakki's father and ruler of the region. He's got the grand ambition of uniting Japan under peace, and he'll do it by force if he has to. There's no amount of baby limbs he won't sell in order to make his dream a reality, so much so that he even had a second son in case he needed more. That's Hyakkimaru, and he sucks. Here we get to see Daigo trying to bring peace to the land by slaughtering an orphanage to make room for... They haven't really thought about what they need the land for yet, but when they do figure it out, it's gonna be peaceful as hell. Daigo tries sicking his samurai on the orphan's caretaker Mio, but Hyakki isn't gonna let that happen. After smacking around Daigo's troops for a while, they decide, well, we didn't even want the stupid orphanage anyway. While it might be nice to take a break, there are demons around, so Hyakki and Dororo go to put a stop to them. It's also funny to note that this event, Hyakki meeting Mio and the orphans, happens way before he meets Dororo in the original manga, but they pushed it up here in the game and anime series since they forgot to actually make you care about any of this in the original story. Just down the road from the temple is a village full of sickly, starving people, with them getting browbeaten by Daigo for not paying their rice tax. We shall unite Japan under my loving embrace of peace. Now give me rice or I'll gut you like a fish. Daigo and his magistrate go for a casual game of child murder as Hyakki and Dororo go to find proof of his demonic connection. Listen, I know we don't kill people, but he's clearly evil. Push him down the stairs and gravity will kill him. Now that there's a lull in the action, I want to take the time to talk about how this game looks. Now, since I owned a GameCube when I was younger, I had the same chip installed into my brain that we all did that makes me say that any game that looks bad looks like a PS2 game. I'd like to apologize for that, since playing games like this and Gungrave gave me a real appreciation for what it can do. This game looks great for a 6th generation game, with plenty of interesting character designs for the enemies and pretty environments. Although, looking at the game next to the original manga looks like those people that draw hyper-realistic versions of Pikachu. Those enemy designs, though, they just run the gambit. Some real standout boss designs in this game, for bosses that you might just miss if you aren't going for all the body parts. However, there's no time to focus on those demons when the demons we're looking for are in the Magistrate's secret mountain hideout. That leaves Dororo to try to break into the hideout to find out whatever she can. To get past the front door, we need to do a quick puzzle of moving boxes until we hit a certain weight. While Dororo learns to count, Hyakki makes his way back to Mio and the orphans before Daigo can. An hour-long head start be damned, he's gonna take his sweet time. While Hyakki tries to convince the orphans to take up arms to defend themselves, a demon shows up to try to kill Hyakki. Greathorn's big brother shows up and tries to give the whole swords for arms thing a spin. Great for murder, bad for handshakes. With Hyakki getting used to the whole sound fad, it's best to switch back to Dororo, who makes up for not getting kidnapped in the last chapter by getting captured by Resident Evil 2. Dororo uses telepathy to call out to Hyakki, I forgot to mention Hyakki has telepathy, and gives him the location of the Magistrate's hideout. Hyakki tells Mio and the orphans to hide inside the temple that Daigo wants to burn down because he's an idiot as he races back up the mountain to find Dororo. Rushing deep into the mountain, and it turns out we can't even kill the Magistrate before his tummy demon does. Daigo had allowed one of the fiends to possess his Magistrate and eat himself to death. For peace. The spirit escapes though and flees further up the mountain, where Daigo has captured Mio and plans on sacrificing her to a massive fiend stuck inside the mountain. We managed to track him and Mio down, as now we gotta go through the gaping maw. At first, I was all for this fight, since his main tactic is waddling around like a lost toddler, but when he starts to fight back, it gets annoying. How unfair! Who does he think he is, defending himself and all that? His last-ditch effort attack is to just run away and hope you get bored of killing him. Right before we can finish him off, though, he spears Mio through the chest and kills her, completing the ritual and awakening the giant fiend. You're seeing this right? It's time to fist fight a mountain, or rather, fight a mountain fist. A fight this daunting may seem impossible, but watch, one combo and half a health bar melts away. The rocks covering the actual arm are all the defense he has, and if you get rid of those, the arm underneath is completely helpless. The bigger they are, the more there is to stab. Don't get me wrong, it's far from easy, but when you get the chance to deal damage, you deal lots of damage. You don't win the fight per se, rather just send the fiend back into the mountain and go to find more bits to stab. Dororo goes to check at the base of the mountain where it's safer, while Hyakki climbs higher because he's expendable. The path back down the mountain for Dororo involves hopping over these pits, and I wish I was funny enough to keep falling in on purpose, but unfortunately, I am not. I may look like an idiot and sound like an idiot, but don't get it twisted, I actually am an idiot. Jumping over 3 gaps reveals that the mountain's fiend is halting Dororo's progress with a thick mist that Hyakki has to dispel. Our path up, though, is stopped for now as we learn the awful truth. He has 2 hands! Moving quickly past that, and we find the source for the mist and destroy it, letting Dororo walk another 12 feet before being stopped by some vines. No, don't even worry about it. What was I gonna do? Give up halfway through killing a mountain? I gotta see this through to the end. We get to the source of the vines and cut that down too, letting Dororo make her way back to the temple. Run, child, the mountain's pissed off! The mountain has a last-ditch effort to stop Dororo by blocking her path, and can you guess what that means? Hyakki gets to the top of the mountain and stares down the mountain's eye. It's just got one attack, firing a laser at you, and you have to return fire with your cannon leg. It's a unique fight for this game, but just like an undiscovered disease, unique doesn't always mean good. Back where the orphans were living is the fiend's heart, with Dororo having to throw bombs to blow it up. Since this is the big finale, you'd hope for a little bit more than just walking back and forth, but that's not really the case. I tried giving it the old one too, but looks like that's not gonna work. After we finish off the heart, the mountain fiend is dead, and Hyakki gets back his nervous system. It's also here that I finally started to realize this was a special kind of game. Getting your nervous system back means that Hyakki can feel pain. Not just that, it also turns on the controller's rumble feature. I was floored when this first happened. What a cool way to showcase how Hyakki's getting his body back, locking controller rumble until Hyakki can actually feel it. It really made me appreciate just how much love and care went into this game. With the mountain fiend dead, Hyakki and Dororo leave once again on the lookout for more fiends. Oh, I found a few under the cushions. There's a Greathorn rematch as well as another fight with Gaping Maw, since we never got to finish him last time. You'd never guess what body part you get back from a fiend who likes to eat. That's right, the small intestine. Without the large one, though, this is really just a semicolon. We gotta get back to the top of the mountain for the last fiend fight, and I think it's time to break the ice. This game doesn't have fast travel. You want to get back up the mountain, drag your mostly wooden keister back up there the long way. The fight at the top is with the Wind Fiend, who spends a great deal of the fight floating above the ground and makes sure to move around just enough that you can't shoot him. I came all the way back up the mountain for this. Hyakki and Dororo come across Daigo's latest scam, splitting a town in two with a wall to fester hatred between decides to gain control of both. They're spending the night in a rickety shack when all of a sudden this guy named Snake Eyes Saburota butts in and sets up camp. I don't know if Snake is the first animal I'd want to be compared to. Doesn't really matter, as by the next morning he's gone and we're left to go find something to do, really. This level is absolutely massive, spread out over 2 fully sized towns designed like mazes with a huge battlefield in between. Getting anywhere takes an eternity, and it really ruins the game in some parts. After fighting off a fox demon and getting back Hyakki's lymph nodes, oh thank god, the pair do what they do best and split up, Dororo going with some kids back to their home in North Town as Hyakki goes to South Town after Daigo. Dororo's section is the first one in the game that got really frustrating. Instead of sneaking around like you had been before, the goal is to hop from rooftop to rooftop to get past some gates, and if you fall off, you can hop back up using these carriages. But the minimap doesn't really show off if the way you're going has any raised rooftops that will stop you from going. There are these orbs that are supposed to guide you, but if you collect them on the first time around, then fall off again, you won't have any idea where to go because everything looks the exact same, just bland gray and brown buildings. The footage doesn't do this part justice, it goes on forever. Getting the kids back to their parents reveals that them and everybody else in North Town has been possessed by those demon foxes, and they try to kill their own kids! So, the South Town is made up of Daigo and his troops, and the North Town is made up of people possessed by the fiends, who work with Daigo. You have to make it to Daigo's manor, and the only way there is across a bridge, littered with archers, ballistas, and traps to keep you away. The trick to winning is cowardice, since you don't have much to gain from fighting, since every enemy is out of your reach or an inanimate object. Once we make it to the manor, they misinterpret our one-man siege on Daigo's fortress as a job application, and bring us upstairs.
Hey, you here to serve under Kagemitsu Daigo too?
Don't know.
You know him?
Don't know.
He hasn't gotten back his social skills yet. Time to sit down and wait for Daigo to come around.
Hey! Your mother ain't shit!
That was weird. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Daigo asks Hyakki to join his cause after realizing that I'm his long-lost son, but Hyakki mostly ignores him. Hyakki wakes up in a panic after realizing it was kind of pointless to come here in the first place, and gets a message from Dororo to meet her at the wall. The path there, though, gets a little complicated, since the third fox demon is blocking the way out of town, which means we have to find and break the seals, keeping the barriers up. This may seem like the shortest level since we're blazing through all the details. Quite the opposite, really. I've just trimmed out a lot of fluff. Our path to the wall is clear of barriers, but now has a snake in the way. Saburota, how could you? Don't you remember the time we spent in the shack? And the hallway? Your name is Saburota, right? The fight with Saburota can be a little tricky since he has a spear and sword, meaning that he's dangerous up close and kind of up close. It also gives him the power of really fun hitboxes. No time to play with Saburota though, since Daigo's going scorched earth and burning North Town. Dororo also keeps trying to get this whole kidnapping gimmick over and gets caught again. We race back to the wall to save her when Taomaru challenges us. Stupid jerk doesn't even know I'm his big brother. Once we beat him into unconsciousness, Hyakki learns that he's his little brother from the final boss of the level, the Nine-Tailed Fox. Alright, suck on this! Oh no, that was my strongest attack. The fox is practically invincible until Taomaru comes in with the assist and stabs out one of its eyes. Now it's vulnerable, but far from easy. The fox is super mobile and spends most of the fight hovering out of range. He can throw fireballs, send out smaller foxes to distract you, and if all else fails, he can just set himself on fire and ram into you. He stays still for much longer than the Wind Fiend did previously though, which means it's easier to fight back with your projectiles. Just make sure to only try and shoot him when he's standing still, and eventually he'll buckle. On top of that, killing the fox gives Hyakki back his heart. With everybody now aware of Hyakki's lineage, he and Dororo kick rocks while Saburota convinces Daigo to let him go after Hyakki. Of course, our time spent in old North-South Town is far from over, since we got plenty of fiends left to hunt down. First up is back at the trap bridge. This is Death. He may look like a previous fiend who couldn't manage to land a single hit on me, but he has his own tricks. Yeah, like an ollie. His laser attack may be easy to avoid, but it happens to share a startup animation with his massive barrier attack, which can really put you on the back foot. He was really keen on getting Hyakki's thyroid. After him, we have to go onto the bridge itself to find the Beast Demon, who might be the easiest fight in the whole game. One of his moves is just getting really tired. His big butt drop is painfully easy to dodge and is the only move he has aside from throwing bombs. I will say his battle arena is super cool, the only time it gets used in the entire level. I love how you can see people getting hung from the bridge in the background. Kinda just wish it was for a boss that doesn't die by accident. We get our Dr. Neo Cortex back and make way for the next fiend, Hellcat. And now it's clear that the team was just softening you up with the last two fiend fights since Hellcat is a lot trickier. His weak spot is his tail, which you may not know is on the back of the body, but every one of his attacks is a means to keep you in front of him since he's quick to turn, swats you out of the air with his claws, and can dig underground. Luckily though, he goes down, we get our Muladhara back, and we go off for the final fiend fight, Blanca from Streets. His looks aren't the only hint. The other one is one I had to learn the hard way, in how lightning attacks like my lightning sword don't even scratch him. He's not just the hardest boss in the level, he's the hardest boss so far. He hits super hard, moves around a lot, meaning you can't hit him and he chases you down, and has stupid high defenses. Blanca is the first boss since Scourge and the Ogress that I could see myself dying to. Just kidding, I'll never die. Those little orbs I've been collecting? 100 of them gets you an extra life, and as much as it might look it, those aren't extra health bars, so if I have 2, that means I have to collect 200 orbs to get them back. Even with those 2 health bars, I nearly kick the bucket, but instead I kick it out of the park, and to the victor go the ribs! Oh boy, I just got a heart for these to protect! Chapter 5 kicks off, and Hyakki decides to get it out of the way early by telling Dororo they're done traveling together. I mean, we spent so much of our time split up, I didn't think it would be that big of a difference. Before we can let her know she's gotta go, though, Saburota shows back up with 40 troops for us to handle, and while earlier in the game just 10 was cause for alarm, now after all the body parts we've gotten back, 40 is nothing. The 100 that comes after, though, might be a bit tough. Now that Dororo and Hyakki are separated, Dororo's gotta find a place to settle down for now. Thanks a lot, Hyakki couldn't have found a better place to abandon a kid than the Arctic wastes. Before we can get far, Saburota comes back, and before you can say Dororo gets kidnapped, you'd be wrong, since he warns her to stay away from Hyakki. Thanks. Dororo eventually finds a temple that she thinks is full of riches, but when we make it inside, all we find is a godforsaken platforming puzzle. Oh, it's timed too! Tell me what contest I won to win a prize like this! At the end of the temple is a bunch of faceless people praying, and our pretty friend. He's the servant of a fiend named Legion, who feeds off pain and suffering, and also human faces. He's gotta have some sort of gimmick. Meanwhile, back with Hyakki, he's sorta just wandering around aimlessly at this point, when all of a sudden... What? Misaki? From Chapter 2? She pops up out of nowhere prepared to stab Hyakki. She's got that dead brother rage, but no dead brother follow-up. Listen, Misaki, I know you're upset. Here, let me juggle combo you. That should help things out. She's still insistent that I killed her brother. Oh, come on, I'm not even in the top 10 people who killed your brother. She runs off as we run off, but in a cool way, up the mountain. Hyakki shows that having a brain and having intelligence aren't always hand in hand, since he sees this walk up to him and then asks to stay in his house. An expected beating follows. The fight with Redcap is weird, cause it's not hard, but I wouldn't call it easy either. When will they invent a word for this emotion I'm feeling? His attacks are easy to avoid and don't do much damage, but with all the time he spends floating away, it's easy to get confused on his position and slip up. Like Gaping Maw before him, he escapes before we can finish the job, and now we need to find out where he's keeping Dororo. Speak of the devil, Dororo is trapped in a chamber with the fiend Legion, who wants Dororo to... give up her face? Wait, you can't just take it? Yeah, he can throw a fireball, but otherwise the hardest part of the room is the platforming. You don't even escape the room, you just have to get above him where Legion can't hit you. It's just a little pathetic, guys. Dororo calls out to Hyakki and lets him know her location at the waterfall, and Hyakki starts making his way over there. It's around this part of the game I really started appreciating all the different swords Hyakki could use. I mainly stuck with sword arm mode because... well, why wouldn't I? But with all the non-lethal battles in the last chapter, I really appreciated what the regular sword stance was good for. Speaking of non-lethal battles, here's one where absolutely nobody's in danger of being killed. Misaki won't leave us alone, but the 20 feet since the last fight has made her a mite bit more cocky. Ow, ouchers, oh, you got me, you totally stabbed me, brother avenged, go away. Leaving a young woman unconscious from head trauma in the cold of the Arctic seems to have not been the best move, since Saburota shows up and swipes Misaki away. Not sure if I should be worried that two people who can't kill me are working together to try to kill me, but frankly they're fighting with Thunder Fiend for my attention. Of all of the silly little features this game has, Thunder Fiend's may be the smallest and silliest. Every time you hit him, he makes a drum noise. He gives us back our lateral muscles as we move on to the waterfall where Dororo and Legion are. This starts the fight against Legion, and all in all, for a major fiend fight, his fight is pretty easy. Sure, half the arena is slippery ice, and he does have that scary looking daffodil, but the amount of attacks that actually use all those weapons are few and far between. Instead, he seems much happier trying to sit on you. Killing him gives us back our nose! Is that what death smells like? Dororo and Hyakki make up, and the whole conflict for this chapter gets wrapped up in a neat, completely unnecessary bow. Now, you do have the chance to leave the mountain early, but I know for a fact there are still demons around here. First off is Redcap, who we can finally kill to get back our left arm. This may be the most impactful upgrade so far. With this, we lose the ability to use our double sword stance like before, but now we use one sword arm and the regular arm. That means the double sword stance gets the super fast high damage of before mixed with the benefits of the different swords from single sword stance. This completely changed how I played the game, and was all the more incentive to look for more body parts to see what they can do. Let's go see what other fiends are on this mountain. I f***ing hate this mountain. Is the trouble really worth it? Oh, sweet, sweet bone marrow. Another fight with the alien statue gives us back our large intestine as the final demon on the mountain is hidden behind this switch. If you can barely land on a platform without a full-blown meltdown, what chances do you think I have of landing on this switch? Yeah, it took me a while, and the boss you fight afterwards is the Minotaur. Whatever you say. He's the perfect mix of speed and power to really put the fear of God in you. He'll dash all around the arena and fire lasers at you, but stabbing him in the head seems to yield positive results. Alright, now he knows if I did hit him, he'd have been history. Taking him down gives Hyakki back my favorite body part that rhymes with Elvis as we come closer to the end of our journey. The sky's getting really pissed off with how well I'm doing as we enter a completely destroyed town. This name doesn't inspire confidence. Misaki's in the center of town waiting for us, looking a fair bit worse for wear, but being around Saburota will do that to you. Seriously, lady, just call it quits. This is gonna keep happening. Saburota implanted a demon inside of her, which means that whatever was there before of Misaki is almost gone. Who tells us this? The horse. From here you enter the majority of the level, which is this Lost Woods bullshit. You've got to scramble around this forest maze looking for the path to the end, and if there's a way to tell which path is the right one, I certainly couldn't tell after the 30 minutes I spent in here. When we do make it to the end, we come out to the gates of hell, where Daigo and Hyakkimaru are talking to the fiends about what to do about Hyakki. We got our top guy working on it, don't even worry. Hyakki gets trapped in the room with Saburota's horse, and Dororo knows he won't last long. I mean, it's a horse, guys! Those things are scary! After hopping down a hole in the roof, the fiends take full control of Daigo as it becomes clearer and clearer that Saburota is the one pulling the strings. Before we get to him, though, we've gotta face our fears and eat that horse. It's nothing too hard until the end, where the windows to hit him get smaller and smaller, and the length of his attacks gets longer and longer. Only now do we complete our collection and get a second eye, as Saburota takes Daigo away to his castle, with Hyakkimaru agreeing to help us to save our dad. Just my luck that the lack of fast travel means we've gotta get back through the maze the way we came in. If only I knew where that was, because every square of this place looks the same. But hey, at least we get the worst fight in the game on our way back. By breaking all these stone heads, we get to fight this thing, which spends the entire fight running away. It takes 7 minutes just to whittle down the first health bar. Fine, I'll say it. I think I can live without my 6th chakra point. You can also fight the Boar Fiend on the way out, who's just like his brother Beast Fiend in that he's dead. Now, we could go straight to the castle to finish off Daigo, but we actually need to double back to Chapter 2 to take a swing at the brand new fully demon Misaki. Going fully fiend this time means there's no back of the sword swinging for us. We've got full reign to cut loose. She has all the same attacks from before with a brand new fire effect, as well as throwing bombs and sending out sword slashes. While it is a much tougher fight, nothing quells the old dead brother murder rage like trapping somebody against a fence. Finishing off Misaki releases the demon that was inside her and gives Hyakki back his right leg. Since that was the leg with the cannon in it, now we have it as its own weapon that holds double the ammo and deals twice the damage. Was it worth getting a cannon though if we had to kill an innocent grief-stricken girl? Oh, absolutely. Even after stabbing her 20 times, she's totally fine. Heck, she's even better now. She's too exhausted to even move, so Hyakki sends her on a miles-long hike to his real dad Jukai's house. I'm starting to think Hyakki's a jerk. We can also use it to go fight the final fiend in this chapter, the Draconis. Look at his tiny arms! How's he supposed to read the newspaper? With all the fiends defeated, the last one we need to find is all the way back in Chapter 1. Break the right rock, and we're on to fighting Mai Onba, who turns into a massive toxic butterfly with boobies I'm not sure if I need to censor? This is one of the better fights in the game. You'd think it was just more touch-and-go fluff like the Wind Demon or Ninetales, but she's always cruising at an altitude you can easily reach. She thinks she has the upper hand? Guess whose body makes insulin now? On to the final chapter, and we get a visit from a spirit telling us that Daigo is forcing innocent people to work themselves to death to build his castle. God, I hope there's not a last-second face turn. I want to kill him so badly. The level starts us out back in North and South Town. Terrible parts boldly left in there until we get to the front of Daigo's castle, destroying watchtowers and taking out the guards. Getting inside the place, and it's an absolute hell of traps and dead ends. The layout of this place is so confusing, filled with difficult jumps and fire jets all over the place that aren't gonna kill you but are going to annoy you to no end. The further you go into the castle, the more of these rooms you'll be trapped in, with one specific type of enemy that you need to clear out. Eventually you'll get to this part with these two demon statues, where you need to hit the switches to orient them in the right way to advance, which isn't so bad, up until the first time when you fall off, which means you've got to run back through the whole course, about 5 loading screens included every single time you fall. I get the idea of this part, but it's more frustrating than anything because the smallest slip-up means you've got to run back through 10 minutes of uninteresting empty rooms. And wouldn't you guess that one of these comes at the last run-through when running across these bridges spawns some rock guys that throw you off the bridge? I want a written apology, I don't care from who! After making it across the bridge and making our way to the stairs, we hear that Daigo is burying the workers who built the castle alive underground, and Dororo goes to the basement to try to free them. Unfortunately, in the way is maybe my favorite boss in the whole game. Not because he's fun to fight, he's boring as stale crackers, but look at how big and imposing he is. Now look at him on his evil little bicycle. How bad does this dude have to suck for this to be the only way he stands a chance? He's not even much of an active threat, he just rides around in a circle and ignores us. Look at him go. The goal is to use these bombs to launch him into a hole in the center of the stage, but if I had the time and patience, I'd love to see what happens if you just kill him the normal way. He doesn't stop cycling for nothing. I think the boss just forgot I was in the room at this point. He falls down a hole, which means we're free to go forward, finding Hyakkimaru trapped with all the other prisoners. I knew I was Daigo's favorite son. We have to free the rest of the prisoners, but it's a little hard to focus when you're being rushed down by a dragon tank. I gotta get out of here. If he gets me, I'm history! Oh crap, wait, let me try that again. This is my only chance to escape! Round 2 with the tank is similar to the last one, where you just need to throw bombs at him, but this is the only boss where you really start to feel the lack of a lock-on. Not being able to target the boss in a fight where your only weapon is a throwing bomb gets frustrating really quick. That was one of the 48 strongest fiends in the whole world, and a child just beat it. Some people have nightmares about losing all their teeth, but what about getting them back? It's time for the final stretch before Daigo, and on the way are plenty of neat moments, like this silhouette fight, a boss rush with tons of demons, and just so many body parts I could probably live without, and a fight where we learn that Saboroto was a human created by the fiends who gets to be a real brave. Oh, that means I can just kill him. Saboroto finally decides to try, adding in a ton of fire attacks with his spear and long-lasting combos. The arena is also surrounded by fire traps, which don't hurt him, and I'm just gonna call shenanigans. Before we finish him off, Saboroto tells us that Dororo is the child that the fiends made out of Hyakki's body parts, and if we want to get them all back, we have to kill Dororo! Well, he's pure evil and on the verge of death, so he must be telling the truth! I mean, he is, but I don't need to know that. It's time to finally take the fight to Daigo. Hyakki tells him that asking a group of demons to bring peace is stupid, and he's stupid for thinking of it. Daigo confirms that suspicion by taking the demons at their word and becoming possessed. He transforms into this only slightly more evil-looking creature as we start out the final fight. But Daigo's a surprisingly easy fight at the start. He only has one attack that stops you from wailing on his side where he can't hurt you, and the damage it does is pitiful. Later on, he starts using actual attacks, like thunderbolts and his tail, and once you get there, it turns into a really challenging and fun fight. I shoot him with a gun, and that's enough to finally put him down, returning another chakra point and stopping Daigo. But there are still, like, 3 demons left, so one of them seizes the opening to possess Hyakkimaru and starts the real final battle. I kinda get why Daigo was such a pushover now, since Hyakkimaru is the much bigger threat. His electric attacks can hit from almost anywhere, it's rarely safe to approach him, and his attacks can burn through your health bars super quick. If I wasn't cheating with all these health bars, it might get scary. Oh, no, we're not doing that whole boss regains his health malarkey. Get in the ground, you rat fink. Daigo wakes up to find one kid dead and the other dead to him, and finally realizes being a good leader will make him a good leader. And how was he supposed to know? Hyakki and Dororo leave the castle in search for more fiends, but end up finding the credits? Yeah, if you don't got all the body parts back yet, the game ends, but when you do find them, you unlock the final chapter. 5 years have passed since the two split up, and in that time, puberty hit Dororo like a truck that backed up over her a few times. Hyakki at this point is just a guy with a prosthetic arm, but killing 47 of the 48 fiends just makes him sound lazy, so he's found a way to get the final fiend out of Dororo's body. It's dangerous though, since it could end up killing her. She accepts the risk for Hyakki, and we start the This was inside Dororo the entire time? No wonder those Dororo punches packed such a wallop. And God, why does every super cool game I play fumble the ball at the last second? The final boss is super unfair. It comes in multiple phases, and it's only during some of them that you get the chance to heal. That means however many life bars you come in with is all you get, in my case just 2. The first phase asks you to hit Behemoth with cannon fire, but what happens if you miss and end up running out of ammo? Well, at first I thought the game just thumbs its nose at you, but you're actually supposed to cut up these purple meteors for more ammo. How you're supposed to figure that out without just getting hit by one is anybody's guess. It's not hard, not even close, but it takes the game's you're just supposed to know philosophy to the limit. Like in the next phase, where the boss sweeps its arm at you but leaves a gap the size of Texas for you to wait it out in. What you're supposed to do is swing your sword at the arm while it's coming at you so that you can stun him, then hop on it and then attack his face. No one without a guide open will ever think to do that, and somehow that's still the most reasonable thing the game asks you to do here. Next, you have to get onto his back and destroy the spikes that fire lightning, climb up onto the tail, and just wail on them. It's not hard to understand, but God is it tedious to do this 6 or 7 times in a row. Also, sometimes you just gotta suffer, it builds character. However, the game saves the worst for last, as now Behemoth will charge you over and over again with almost no room to dodge. How do you hit him? You need to stand directly in front of him as he's charging and slash at his head until he dies. Now, clearly, this is rad as hell, but the execution is so janky and bad, and you have to do it all in one go. If you manage to hit him but mess up and he gets away, he gets all of his health back. Timing this section is absolutely miserable, and if you don't start at the very edge of the platform where timing is at its hardest, you'll never make it. When you do get the timing down, you move on to the final phase, where you need to do a 48-hit combo on the pod with Dororo in it to end this. Let's just say, like, as a gag though, you mess it up. Where does that put you? Back in the last phase to do the clashing bit again. Luckily, the Sword of Twin Clouds I got earlier doubles all slashes and finisher sections, so I only have to do half the work. Don't worry, Dororo, I'll get you out of there. I just gotta style on him first. This is such a letdown of a final boss. It tries to go for big and climactic, but it's just not really the sort of game that can do that. We get our right arm back and become a real boy for the first time, and with that, the game finally comes to an end. This was just violent Pinocchio.
Ruh-roh. I don't like this. I don't like anime. 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 I hate it. If I have to see anime one more time, I hate it. Oh, the enemy.